Alaikum everyone, it's Muth and Sar. Someone sent me a video today of a Sheriff Morgan. Many of you probably have seen this video already. I'm just slow. It was just sent to me. But I listened to it. It was a little less than 5 minutes. And the gist of what this sheriff what he put out was that there were a few things. There were a few things that I would like to speak about. Okay, one of them, he said that people here in this country, black people in this country, we are not African Americans. That basically we have no right to the title of African American because he, being a white man, is fourth generation Welsh, people who are from Wales, and he and his family do not consider themselves Welsh Americans. They are just Americans. So therefore, black people in this country have no right to use the term, and you should not be using the term African Americans because we're not from Africa, and we have not been from Africa in a very long time. That we are simply Americans, i.e., black Americans. Of course, I have an issue with that because I have an issue with that particular thing. I think that we as black people, if we just want to be call ourselves black or African Americans or Afro Americans or whatever, that's our prerogative. I do not believe that in this case, a white man, simply because you and your family choose to sever ties with your heritage, that's your prerogative. However, you don't get to say who another group of people get to call themselves. But anyway, that's what he said. The other thing that he said is that black people, black Americans, his term, in this country, that we have issues that we, kind of always go on about. Some of them are real and some of them are perceived. And that he thinks that the majority of our issues, quote unquote, are perceived. And the thing that he uses to sort of justify his thought is that he says that for the first time in the history of this country, we have he said an African American, because Obama is part African, half African, that for the first time in American history, we have an African American president. Then he also went on to name Colin Powell, who, was Secretary of Defense at one time, and another general, 4-star general, he named. And that in itself, he says, proves that that America is not a racist country. He also went on to say that black Americans only make up less than 13% of the population in America, and that even if all the black people would have been eligible to vote, then only less than 13% would have been able to vote Obama into presidency. And that, with that being said, it's proof that it was white people who actually got him into the presidency. Okay, my issue with that. First of all, to say that black people are the minority has always just seemed stupid to me. It's ludicrous. To say that black people are the minority in this country, I'm going to tell you why. Primarily, because in America, the non-racist America, in America, if you are white, you are simply white. It doesn't matter if your heritage is Welsh. It doesn't matter if, your people are Scandinavian, Polish. It doesn't matter. You're white. You're just white. However, in non-racist America, black people or people of color are split and separated in every which way possible. So even if the group considers themselves to be black, American culture, American society does not allow that. So as he said, I'm sorry, he said white people would have voted Obama into office, but he also said so Indians, Asians. The only reason why it can be said that black people are the minority is because we are all broken and separated up. So Jamaicans consider themselves black, but they won't be considered black on, an application or whatever. You have Native Americans, you have Asians, you have whoever, Haitians, and I'm not talking about people who just came over here when I say Jamaican and Haitians. I'm talking about people whose families have been here in this country for 2 or 3 or whatever generations. They consider themselves black. However, society doesn't consider themselves black. It seems to me that this gentleman, I guess, who's he considering black Americans? Like those people who he perceives are here through slavery, which were brought here during a slavery, during the slave trade to non-racist America. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so we're not 13%. Furthermore, to sit there and pretend that, as he said, Obama's been voted into office twice. Need I remind people of all the racist crap that man had to go through when he was running for presidency? All that tells me is that America hates women more than they hate black men. Because it was between him and Hillary, and they're like, oh no, we don't want her. So that's not proof to me that there's no racism in America. In fact, the mere fact that anyone can even bring up President Obama or Colin Powell or another handful of people and say, see, hey, we're not racist because we have black people. The mere fact that they can even be brought up in itself is proof that there is racism in America. If there was no racism in America, if this is not a racist society, there would not even be a reason to say, well, hey, what about the black president? Because it wouldn't even be an issue, and he wouldn't have been the first, okay? So, I don't know. I think, anyway, let me go on. Another thing he said is that people who accuse America as being racist are simply focusing on specific incidences in which we may have had problems with race relations. I don't know, is he talking about all the murdering of black men and boys by the police? I don't know. Also, he went on to say that that black communities, black culture has adopted a thug culture. And so he went on to say, pertaining to that, he named a few cases where I guess a black person, a male, female, I don't remember, but a black person beat a 77-year-old white man. Another time, a white female was beat up. I think he said by two black women and a male. In another case, he also mentioned was a black male who shot and killed a white male. Let me tell you something. I'm not going to sit here and try to deny that there are lots of black people who do things that's wrong. I'm from the hood, as I've said many, many times. I'm from the hood also. I see things that go down. So I'm not trying to dispute that there are people who do things. black, white, Native American, whatever. They do things. However, you cannot, there's no way that the two can be, there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't put the two up against one another. Um, if a black person does something to a white person, it's not because it's a race thing. Something that went down. Even if they mad at the person because they're white and they beat the mess out of them or something like that, which I do not condone. However, it is not racially motivated, and I will tell you why in a sec. Another thing he said, he's talking about that because he's like, where's the outrage with that? Where's the outrage? He said that we need to have equality across the board, which I agree. He said that criminal specialists predicted that this type of behavior would be going on like 10 years ago. They predicted this. And he also said, in talking about these black people who do wrong, that the reason they do wrong and they have this type of thug culture going on is because they have no connection to religion or faith or family. Okay. The reason why I said that pitting incidences where a black person had done something to a white person, putting that against the opposite, white people doing things to black people, you cannot, they don't balance out. There is no equality in that, and they are not racially motivated. Why? I've said this many times, and I know people have heard other folks say this many times. Black people can't be racist. I know folks like to say, oh, that don't make sense. It makes total sense. Why? Because there is an entire system that is in place, that has been in place for centuries here in this country, and that remains in place. Actual laws that keep down black people. And in that sense, there ain't no discrimination about who's black or not. It's everybody that's a person of color. It discriminates against us. It just does. It's what happens. And people who pretend that there's no racism, or that, incidences and issues that black people have in the black community are mostly perceived, the proof is in the pudding. How many, and I know there's some cops who have shot white people too, but how many white people have been shot consistently by police officers compared to blacks, and black males in particular? White parents don't have to teach their children how to respond to police officers if they're stopped doing a routine check. I'm gonna say routine, but doing a routine check, or how they don't have to do these things. They don't have to teach them to be afraid. They don't have to teach them to be cautious. You do not see white children being murdered by police officers in the street. We've been seeing things the past couple of years or so since Trayvon Martin, and the Walter Scotts, and these people that we've been hearing about lately. Then back in the 90s, you had, of course, Amadou Diallo. You had Sean Bell in the early 2000s. Every now and again you hear stuff, and lately we've been hearing it more, but it does not compare anywhere near what is going on, what's actually going on and not being reported. Alhamdulillah for cameras and people taking the initiative and having the courage to record these police officers and what they're doing, and bringing it to the forefront. However, this is nothing new. It's been going on for so long, and it continues to go on. How is that not biased? I have a real problem with people in general, white people specifically, who constantly try to, come up with ways with how they're actually the victims. Oh, but what about what happens to us? Oh, well, what about this and what about that? It can't compare. It does not compare. It will never compare, I'm convinced, in this country. Um, it's just, it irks me. It like gets into my brain and digs in it like ugh, like with like a pin or something, that people constantly do these things and try to come up with these things about how they are actually the ones who are the victims and blah blah blah. Listen, my thinking is this. If you don't like black people always talking about what's happening to us, if you don't like black people rallying against police officers, if you don't like the fact that black people have perceived you know, what's the word, little extras like affirmative action and things like that, if you don't like it, then damn it, stop perpetrating the system that's making these things happen to us. If nothing, if we're not having our kids shot down in the street and everything, there'll be no reason to, be out there rallying. So if you don't like it, stop doing it. You don't want somebody. It's like if your child keeps crying all day long, crying, I'm hungry, I'm so hungry, please feed me, I'm hungry. And you getting peed off because the child keeps crying. Feed the child and the child will stop crying. Likewise, you want to hear us stop crying about the harms that's being done to us? Stop doing harm. I think for me, when I hear people like this sheriff get up and whine about, oh, well, you got 3 black people that's in, prominent office. What's wrong? We're not racist. Man, you just sound stupid. It's just so annoying and frustrating. And I mean, then as me also being a Muslim, hearing these people like on Fox News and stuff, and these wannabe, conservatives or liberals or whatever the heck they coin themselves, they just talk so much stuff and think they sound so good, but they just sound so stupid. And stupidity is something that irks the mess out of me. But I digress. I would say to you for yourself, if you've never seen his video, look at it. His name is Sheriff Morgan. I don't know what the original video is called or anything because it was just sent to me. But I would say to maybe look at it yourself and, come up with your own thoughts and everything. And, if you see it wrong, stand up against it somehow. Whether it's just making little YouTube videos, to speak out against something, or actually taking an action, signing petitions, rallying, things like that. We have to do something. We can't just keep sitting around and letting this foolishness happen to us. Our ancestors, we have to honor them, and we have to honor our descendants, and we need to honor ourselves, in my opinion. So we can't just sit down and just, take things or pretend that stuff is not going on, because it's never ever going to get better. It's just going to get worse. We're dealing with the biggest bullies on the face of this earth, and we got to stand up together. Whoever sees that there's something wrong and they are willing to stand up for what's right, regardless to nationality, regardless to race. We can't do this alone, as I've said before. We can't do this alone. So, yeah, check that out and make your own decision. Peace, everyone.